You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2. It's episode 47. Cubs error in England costly. Don't forget to download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, Fly the W, of course, on Facebook. Email us, flythew670 at gmail.com. Crawly, how are you? Good Monday morning to you.
I got to tell you, I don't mean to be negative, but there's certain Cub losses that just hit me different. And, the Cubs have been doing really good lately, and the London series looked like a blast, but that game yesterday really chipped my hide.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I was following it on social media, doing the best I could with the app. I am actually down in Orlando visiting Mickey Mouse right now, so did not get to watch the TV portion of it, but saw that Trey Mancini had a rough afternoon after the Cubs got up early. But I get it, but let's get into the first game because that game was much more happy than the second game, no doubt about that.
I mean, we talked to Michael Ivory from UK Cub fans, and there were a lot of people that I knew that were out there, and I was kind of asking, "What's the vibe?" And they're like, "Man, it's just like a Cubs party out here. It's a Cubs carnival," and you could tell on the TV and everything. It was fun, and the Cubs made it fun right away. The Cubs absolutely crushed Game 1. So this was the game I was nervous about. And, Justin Steele was just back from his second start from the IL. Adam Wainwright is a guy that, traditionally has given the Cubs fits. But, what I saw from Justin Steele was exactly what I wanted to see, which was it looked like he took the next step forward from the IL. Went 6 innings pitched. He gave up 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and struck out a season high 8 batters. He had a no-hitter going through the first 4 innings. And then he struck out the last 3 batters he faced. So the bullpen of Merriweather, Fulmer, and Kay closed it out without giving out a run. But glad to see the Cubs, Steele starting to get back to how he was pitching before going on the IL. The Cubs' 9-1 victory over St. Louis marked the Cubs' 32nd game in which they allowed 2 or fewer runs. That's tied for second most in the majors behind only the Tampa Bay Rays, which is the best team in baseball. And Chicago's 29 victories while allowing 2 or fewer runs are second most in the majors, only behind only Toronto, which is another great, is a team that's kind of like the Cubs. It just doesn't seem like their record indicates how they've been playing. So, the starting pitching has just been really phenomenal, and the Cubs have had a lot of games where the pitching has shut it down.
Yeah, Justin Steele was great. Crawly worked himself into a lather. Saw the 3 strikeouts as we were in the hotel at that point. That was awesome. Bullpen looked great. But hey, they scored 9 runs, so the offense put on a little bit of a show too, right?
Oh man, that was just continuing where they left off from when they from the Pittsburgh series. They put on a show. How about Ian Happ? He hits 2 solo home runs. Dansby Swanson hit a 2-run blast. Morel was 3 for 4 with an RBI on his birthday. Gomes 2 for 4 with an RBI. Magical 2 for 4 with an RBI. Cubs scored 9 runs on 14 hits. 5 for 14 with runners in scoring position. And my favorite stat from this game, they had a season high 9 2-out hits. Love to see that.
Yeah, that's always huge. Always huge when you can score with 2 outs, no doubt about it. It's so much fun. I don't know what it is. I mean, I do know what it is. It's so enjoyable when you can put a beat down on the Cardinals, right?
Oh, and Ian Happ, he recorded his 11th career multi-homer effort and extended his franchise mark of most home runs by a switch hitter. He's at 111 career blasts, right? And the funny thing about this, you talk about beating down the Cardinals. 4 of Happ's 11 multi-homer games have come against the Cardinals. 3 came off Adam Wainwright and one off Michael Wacha. But prior to going, this is Ian Happ. How about this? You know how Pat Hughes says when you hit one, they come in bunches? Prior to going deep in his first 2 appearances in that game, Happ had 1 homer in his previous 42 games. Then all of a sudden, now he's just starting to rake. So that's fun. And talk about fun, Christopher Morel's slugging percentage, just absolutely ridiculous. Since his debut, which was against the Cardinals, he's slugging .638, which is third in the majors behind Shohei Ohtani and the Rangers' Corey Seager. So His 13 home runs are tied for fourth, and his 971 OPS is tied for seventh. So, Morel's starting to cool down a little bit, but he's been on one heck of a run. So as we kind of take a look here at game 2, this is kind of the one where I start to get a little bit irritated.
A little bit irritated.
Just a little bit here. We had it. We originally had a different starting pitchers. We talk about pitching probables, and what we had originally ended up having to change. So I want to say, what was it? Who was it? Who did they have? I want to say, was it Jordan Walker? Or either way, what ends up happening is that he ends up having issues with his hip. And so they had to switch it out and get a different pitcher to start it here. Let me see if I got that original probable. Yeah, that was Jack Flaherty that was supposed to start the game. He has a bad hip. And so they get Matt Liberatore, and he is going to start the game. And right away, I started to get a little bit nervous just because it kind of throws things off. And the Cubs lose this one 7-5. And it was a tale of two games. There was the first through the third innings, and then everything after that. And like I said, the game just looked like a continuation of the party the night before. The offense comes out in the first inning. Nico Hoerner reaches on a fielding error on Paul DeJong. Nico would steal second. And then Nolan Gorman would be charged with an error on a missed catch. And with 2 outs, Dan B. Swanson would single, and the Cubs were up 1-0. Another 2-out hit. Ian Happ would walk. Mm-hmm. Yep. Ian Happ would walk, and then Trey Mancini would double, scoring Swanson and Happ. Then Miguel Amaya would double to make it 4-0. But then the Cubs offense did their classic vanishing act. In the top of the third with 1 out, Ian Happ would walk. Matt Liberatore was pulled, and Cody Bellinger was brought in to replace Trey Mancini. But let's kind of rewind here, right? You got the Cubs up 4-0 in the first inning. Like I said, the Cub fans are rocking the Olympic Stadium and all of that. You got Stroman on the mound. Everything's looking good. In the bottom of the first, Brandon Donovan hits a ball to Swanson. And if you watch the game, there was a couple of things about that turf. The ball was kind of a little bit bouncy, right? And so the play that Swanson makes is not the greatest, but it's something that totally should have been caught by Mancini. It wasn't that difficult of a catch, but he kind of botches it, right? So the error went on Dansby, but to me, it really should have gone on Mancini. And then the other thing but luckily, Marcus Stroman makes a fantastic double play to end the inning, and the Cubs are still at 4-0, right? In the second, though, with 1 out, the Cardinals hit back-to-back single, right? Stroman walks Jordan Walker, the red-hot rookie, and I wonder if that was partially intentional. He gets Paul DeJong to strike out swinging, right? You got 2 outs. Tommy Edman hits a ball to Nico, and for some reason, Trey Mancini starts going towards the ball like he wants to make the play. Then he realizes that Hoerner has it, so he tries to hustle back to make it back to first. And as the throw comes, he tries to catch it barehanded. He can't make the play, and the Cardinals get their first run. That should have been the inning. Instead, Brandon Donovan would single, and the Cardinals would trim the Cubs' lead 4-3.
It was like he couldn't find first base, Crawly. It was like he couldn't figure out how to go backwards and just get himself back to the bag. It was it looked like somebody who hadn't played baseball before. He just looked really clumsy on that play.
It was like 3 errors on one play. It was like,
right? Oh my gosh.
It was initially he shouldn't even gone for that ball. Second, he should have made it to the bag, like you said. His footwork just looked awful. And then third, trying to catch that barehanded. I have no idea what he was doing.
Because if he had actually made the defensive play, if he had actually fielded the ball himself, there would have been no way he would have been able to get the runner out at first base because of the way his momentum was carrying him. And it's not because Stroman wasn't going to be great as usual on defense. It's just there was no way Mancini was going to get that ball, turn around, get in a proper position, and be able to fire it off for whoever was covering first, which in that case would have been Stroman.
Right. And so it was so frustrating. And all of a sudden, the Cardinals, who looked like a dead ass team, and their fans, which were sitting on their hands for the prior, 12 innings, now they're coming to life. And remember what I said on the last show about a movie villain that if you let them, come back and pop up, that's exactly what's going to happen. In the bottom of the third, Stroman gave up an RBI single to rookie Jordan Walker to tie the game. Then in the bottom of the fourth, with one out, Tommy Edmonds singles. Stroh hits Brendan Donovan with a pitch. Paul Goldschmidt, he singles. The Cardinals took a 5-4 lead. The trainer and Ross come out, and they see Stroman kind of shaking his hand type thing, and that's it. He's out of the game. Luckily, only a blister, and it didn't pop. So just so you know, Stroman's had a history of blisters. So this is the first time it's happened as a Cub. But he's out of the game. Fulmer comes in. He gave up a sac fly to Lars Nootbaar to make it 6-4.
Remember during the last episode, Crawly, I said I didn't want to hear that guy's name at all, Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah, I remember it, and sure enough, and that made it 6-4. And something that just irritated me, it just seemed like all of a sudden, once Mancini's couple bad defensive plays, a lot of the team, they just all of a sudden looked like they lost their composure. Now, this didn't come to cost them, but that sac fly by Nootbaar, Ian Happ makes a catch on his heels backing up, and for some reason, he throws home. It wasn't even close, and Goldschmidt advanced to second. Now, Fulmer got the next batter out, but that's just poor fundamentals. Like, you make the throw to second. Unless you're coming in on the ball, there was no way he was getting the runner out. So why would you let the runner advance? So that just blew my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there were a lot of little fundamental plays, as you point out, that are really going to, tick you off. I guess the good news, obviously, we've already recapped game number one. They won game number one. So worst case scenario, they're going to, get out of London with a split. And it almost felt like they were almost relieved and willing to do that as this game progressed.
I just, talking about that, here's a base running play, right? Top of the third, there's one out. Ian Happ walked. Matt Liberatore was pulled. Cody Bellinger's brought in to replace Mancini. That had to happen. That was a benching. And then Cody Bellinger singled to put runners on first and second. But then Ross pinch hit Tauchman for Miguel Amaya. Miguel Amaya hit a double earlier in the game. So Tauchman hits it to second, right? So you got two outs. Tauchman hits it, you got one out. Tauchman hits it to second. He would have beat the throw to first, right? He's hustling. He makes it. But for some reason, Happ tried to score on this play. He was out by a mile.
By a mile. Yep.
Wasn't
even close. That may as well been you or me trying to score.
Right. And it was like, who was that? Willie Harris? I didn't get a good camera angle on that. I don't know what happened, but it was like the dumbest play I ever seen. And then from the fourth through the seventh inning, the Cubs did not have a hit. Their only base runner came from a Christopher Morel walk in the fifth. Nico Horner hit a sac fly in the ninth to make it 7-5. I mean, and that's how it would end. But it was really, looking at it, just such a frustrating offensive performance. They had, 5 runs on 7 hits, but I just looked at this like one of those situations where they just kind of stopped hitting, and we've seen this with this team. How about this, Dustin? 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, that's like I'm down in Disney. That's like a Woody doll. You could have a Cubs doll and pull a string out of its back. Runners in scoring positions, an issue. Runners in scoring positions, an issue. Runners in scoring positions, an issue. I mean, it's been rough. And another issue is Trey Mancini at first base, which I'm shocked. Let's take a look at that tweet, can we, Crawly?
Yeah, that's Jordan Bastian, and he said, "I kind of let the game speed me up there, and the game is 100% on me. I'm sorry to my teammates and all the fans because it's been such a great trip here. It would have been nice to get 2 wins, and I really feel very responsible for our loss." What do you take on that, Dustin?
Well, I like the fact that he's man enough to put it out there. I don't know that would have been the case. I think how is it? Is it irony? I know you're so Cubs, Crawly. I know your like sole focus is Cubs, but you're a decent music guy. I know you like your Grateful Dead and some other bands out there, but they're in England. And remember the famous "I've got a blister on my finger," right? And
Right,
and
right,
they're in
right.
London, right? And that's what does in Stroman. So Stroman only getting through where he got. I mean, that's gonna. And I wonder if listen, they won the first game in such grand fashion. I wonder if they had a really fun afternoon after winning that game, evening in London. And then they got the early start. They know they got to come back. They got to get back on the field tomorrow. So maybe they just kind of were in kind of relax mode, if you will.
I
But I
think
appreciate Mancini. Facing the reporter, saying what he said. Bastion getting it out to everybody. I think that's great.
let's put it this way though. And I don't know if you want to blame Ross or you want to blame Mancini, whoever, but he has been a disaster at first base. This is the most obvious time that it's cost them a game. And he went out there and called it. When you talk about Stroman, the pitching staff really didn't, give up too much after Stroman left. Okay. It was like I said, you had the Cardinals dead on the ground and you let them up off the mat. You
Right. You
gave
said
them
it the other
hope.
day, right about putting your foot on their neck and not letting them up. Something else, Crawley, I want to spin back at you about Trey Mancini for a second. Now, he has had very sporadic um, plate appearances of late. And then, Mervis came up and that made those plate appearances even less. And Cody Bellinger comes back and he's taking the majority of plays over at first base. Do you think that has something to do with it? Or are you ready to go with Bellinger at first and Talkman at center moving forward for the majority of the time?
Until I see something otherwise, I really don't want to see Mancini doing anything other than pinch hit. And I really felt that was it just I talked about this on another podcast where I felt like I didn't watch a lot of Baltimore Orioles baseball. It was a bad product for many years. This is the first year they're looking good. I thought Trey Mancini would be serviceable as a first baseman. What this entire team was built upon was pitching and run prevention. And when you have a guy, we have been spoiled as Cub fans. We've had a tremendous amount of first basemen with good hands. When you want to go back, obviously, to Anthony Rizzo, whether you want to go to Derek Lee, whether you want to go to Mark Grace, whether you want to go to Leon Durham, you can keep going back and back, and you have a lot
Hold
of
on, don't go. Leon Durham. Unfortunately, Crowley. A lot of people have one memory of Leon Durham that
one
are
bad
of
one.
my age or younger. Okay, my age or younger have that one image on a I forget what day of the week it was, but a TV possibly rolled into your classroom on the old AV carts and a ball going through somebody's legs in San Diego.
That was a Gatorade soaked glove, unfortunately. But point being, great history of great first baseman, and just watching Mancini out there is like a butcher. It's unwatchable, and I still have I think that Ross sometimes makes some managerial decisions that make me scratch my head. He ends up in this game when it really bothered me that he pulled a Maya. I thought that was a real quick trigger on a play, and then once he did that, you ended up having all these lefties in a row, and I thought that was a mistake. And so I would have kept Amaya in, but like I said, the Cubs have been doing great. It was a series that you should have swept. I was just so excited thinking to myself, well, that would have been like 3 out of 4 series that you got sweeps on. It was just everything was rocking, and then it's all of a sudden it was like someone turned down the lights in a party, and you're like, "Ow, ouch! What the hell was that?"
Yeah, the woulda, shoulda, coulda, but the good news is, I guess, at least they swept. And Game One was in electrifying fashion, and "Go Cubs, Go" was echoing out throughout the streets of
And,
London.
and let me just say one thing: how great are the Cub fans? The way that they traveled, the way that they were singing
It's
"Go Cubs,
insane.
Go,"
It's
like you
absolutely,
said.
it's absolutely insane. It's insane the way they travel. And how about the former mayor? Did you see the what was it, Mayor Lightfoot? Um,
Bill
who
Murray,
was sitting? Bill Murray, and who there was a third person. It's like
Rick Sutcliffe.
okay, like I mean, maybe Rick Sutcliffe and Bill Murray sit together, but like she just was the oddest it was the oddest group of celebrities or Chicago representatives that I've ever seen. It was just the funniest thing. Like, I mean, wouldn't Mayor Johnson have wanted to be there? And I thought Lori Lightfoot was a White Sox season ticket holder and fan. Not that I mean, listen, Lori Lightfoot came on the Mully and Haw show many times. From a personal standpoint, seemed like a lovely person. I mean, she's a passionate Chicago sports fan. It just seemed like an odd pairing, to end up showing on the national broadcast of people representing the city. It's just like, you think they were like having beers, like talking, like, was there any small talk, or was this like the Cubs gave away 3 seats, that they had in their back pocket, and then like, here you go, here you go, here you go. It just seemed like an odd group sitting together. That's all.
It was, but it was, you know what? Hey man, I like anytime Bill Murray and Rick Sutcliffe are together, I get jealous and wish I was sitting next to him.
Exactly right. This is episode 47, season 2. The Cubs' error in England is quite costly. The Cubs should be back in Chicago, as Crawly and I are taking care of this for you on a Monday morning. But let's get into some news, some roster moves, and let's preview the upcoming series against the Phillies over at Wrigley.
Well, we do have some exciting news, some good news before we start getting into the bad news. The good news, Crane Kenny made an appearance on Inside the Clubhouse Saturday mornings with David Haw and Bruce Levine, and he made Cub fans very exciting out of nowhere. You ever talk about burying the lead? Like, this was just kind of in the middle of like a 30-minute interview, and I'm listening like I always do on Saturdays. I said, wait, what did Crane said? So anybody that knows anything in the as far as media consumption knows what the letters DTC means, and that is direct to consumers. And like I said, out of nowhere, this is the gem that is dropped on 670. You can also get this on the Audacy app. And so I know, Dustin, you're always putting stuff up there and stuff like that. Give this a listen, Cub fans, because I know it's going to interest a lot of you.
Crane.
Crawly, I did not hear it. I was in the air on Southwest when that was happening. So later in July, right after the All-Star game that they're talking?
I got a clip for you, so listen to this.
How about that? All right, Crawly.
DTC services coming in July. Explain what's going to go on, how that'll affect the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, and this is something we talked about at the convention, and certainly it's been a pretty popular topic. The landscape for media consumption, I would just put it in the terms of consumers. People are finding their programming in all sorts of ways, not just cable and satellite subscriptions, and streaming services seem to be popping up daily. We've seen a few teams, the Red Sox and Yankees, and then a few of the Bally's teams, and most notably the Padres just launched a streaming service after their rights were returned to them in the bankruptcy. So the world is changing very, very quickly, even since the 2019 launch of Marquee, which is primarily on cable and satellite. And to reach our fans that have cut the cord, we're going to be introducing a streaming service this year. We're aiming for July, sometime after the All-Star break, to bring a service, for those who say, I've cut the cord. I don't have Fubo, which we are available on, but I'd like to buy Marquee individually, not as part of a package, but just the channel to see Cubs games. We hope to make that available to them in July.
How much has gone into that in terms of research, in terms of implementation, Crane, and how much of the...
Well, let's just stop it right there. I mean, that you get the gist, but after the All-Star break, so Dustin, you and I are part of a growing older Cub fan base, right? At this point, most of the younger people that I know don't have cable. They've cut the cord. Okay. And so this direct to consumer option is going to be huge. Right now, you have a couple options, especially thinking about Cub fans that are not in the Illinois area, right? Like, because the Cub fans in WGN, there's Cub fans everywhere. And so what will end up happening here is that you have two options. Option number one is if you're out of state, is you can get the MLB package, but that's just the games. That's not the other Marquee content. Or you could get Marquee somehow, but you wouldn't be able to get the games. This standalone app, very similar to HBO or many others, would allow you to get everything on Marquee for a monthly fee. Dustin,
All
this
right,
is
that's
huge.
the next question, though. It's huge. I like it. It's huge. Here's the question: what's the fee? What do you think the fee is going to be? What is it? Is this a $9.99? Is it $9.95? Is this $19.99? What do you think? What do you? I don't think it could be any higher than $20. What do you think?
I agree with you. I don't think it's higher than 20, but I don't, if you're a Cub fan and you really love this team, I always joke around. I could live on Netflix, HBO, and Marquee. Those are the only three things I ever watch. So why do I need to pay? Why do I need to pay a couple $100, for, just to really see three channels? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I can't tell you what it's going to be. I'm sure they have all the data to say what they think Cub fans would pay, and they might have deals for the first time around. But that to
you're
me,
you're the wrong guy to ask. But what do you think? What do you think is fair, Crawly? $9.99 or $19.99? Do you think it's actually going to be higher? What's your prediction? We do predictions on who we think is going to win the series. Let's do a little predicting on what we think this the standalone is going to be.
So here's the thing that worries me is that those guys, sometimes people think of dollars and cents, right? Where you say to yourself, okay, let's see, what do you think we can get? We could probably get $20 out of a good amount of Cub fans. I think if the Cubs are smart, they go $9.99, which I think would be reasonable. And again, grow your fan base. We talked about the Cubs traveling to England. Why do you think the Cubs are so popular? Why do you think every game that they play, every road game, there's a huge amount of Cub fans in? It's because of the Superstation. It's because of WGN. It's because people watched all over the country. So allow that to continue to grow. I have my brother in Colorado who doesn't get to watch the Cubs games, and I got a nephew growing up. You want my nephew to be a Cub fan, another guy that's going to spend money on jerseys and hats and all that stuff and want to make trips to see the Cubs play Colorado? Then allow people to get these games in an affordable manner. That's what I'm hoping. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. That's what I would do if Crawly's in charge.
Amen. I'm going to second you on all of that. So we had Crane Kenny making some news. We also had some really interesting comments from Tom Ricketts we want to share.
Yeah, it was great. They were the 670 The Score in the morning show. They took over a pub in England on Thursday, and it was awesome. Absolutely filled to the brim with Cub fans. And Tom was out there, and they were chanting "Re-sign Stroman." So they were letting them hear it. And Tom said, "Well, that's for Jed to decide." Being what he's supposed to say. But he was asked by Megan Montemurro of the Tribune. They had like a little interview like in there, and they're talking about the trade deadline. And Tom said, obviously we're buyers now, and things can come off the rails, but I don't think they will. I think what we have is a core that can compete for the division and compete for the playoffs. And now it's finding the missing parts to add to it. I think Jed had a really good offseason. We came into this year thinking we'd be contending for a division. All the credit to David Ross and the players for coming together. When you make a comment like that, people are going to remember that come trade deadline. So let's see what happens on that.
Yeah, let's hope the Cubs keep playing well enough, get above 500, and that they are in a position to make Tom Ricketts keep his word on that. Now, we started the podcast, Crawly, and you talked about how you were a little red-assed because of what happened on Sunday morning here, but Sunday afternoon in London. And before that, I believe you threw out a couple of tweets, and I know you texted me about something you've been dreading for a long time, and that is the sleeve patch on the Cubs' beautiful jersey.
Yeah. So again, let me preface this, and I sometimes get ahead of myself here. This was done 100% with, and they did this with the last London series with the Yankees and the Red Sox. Is they put sponsorship sleeves on. Okay, so this was going to be done, and it has no relation to when they come back. Okay, they also had the Cubs had a sponsorship on their helmet, and the Cardinals as well. So they're trying to make as much money off of this and whatever. But the Cubs found a partner for their jersey patch in England, and it was Advocate Healthcare Center. So that they're a sponsorship of the Cubs. here. You hear it on the Pat and Ron call, and you see it at Wrigley and all this stuff. But a lot of teams, the Cubs are one of the few that do not have a sleeve patch. And my guess is that, yes, I know it was just for the Dustin. I think I'm hanging out with you too much. I think I'm getting conspiratorial here all of a sudden. I thought to myself, this is a perfect test balloon because I think it was a legacy partnership that they have with Advocate. It matches the color. It was a blue patch, but I was just kind of, so I don't know. I don't know where your thoughts were on that, but I just know it's coming.
I didn't catch it. I caught it from you. You were the one who pointed it out to me and many other Cub fans that it was even going on. But I know that I've shared with you, and I've shared on this podcast. I've shared it on the air at 670. I mean, I had a fit when I saw, I believe the first thing I remember, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Crawly. The first thing I remember, and I love Weber. I have many Weber grills. I remember the Weber grill logo on the outfield door going into the batting cage area, right? And I thought that was like this week's sign that the apocalypse is upon us. That bothered me. Then when that Toyota sign went up in left field, I thought, oh my gosh, what are they doing to my beautiful Wrigley Field? But this is all part of it. I mean, this is keeping up with the times, right?
I guess the very first ones ever on the doors that you're talking about, it became Weber a little bit, was the Under Armour. Was the very first thing.
It was Under Armour before Weber.
Yes.
Really?
Under Armour was the very first thing. I remember having a fit about it. I remember it very clearly. The Toyota sign didn't bother me as much, but then all of a sudden you just start popping up everywhere, and now it's even on the field. It's spray painted along the line, Gallagher Insurance. And so, I mean, obviously, but it doesn't mean I'm going to have to like it, right? I love the clean look of the jersey. I love the clean look of the jersey.
We're in the opinions business, Crawly, here.
I like the clean look of the jersey. I didn't even like the Nike swish, which bothered me. So, of course, I'm not going to like this, but we'll see what happens. But one other minor bit of news, the Cubs won their ADA lawsuit. That's been going on since the 1016 project, the renovation. Questions about handicap seating, the amount and the location of the seats. And so the Cubs just won a big court case. It doesn't mean that it's done. Of course, you know that you can always, take it to the next level. You go to the appeals court and appeal it. I don't know what their plan is, but they did do that. And Cubs spokesman Julian Green said in a statement, team was grateful for today's decision and its validation of our belief that we followed accessibility guidelines through the 1060 project.
All right, Crawly, let's move into some roster moves. Nothing huge there to talk about, but some really, unfortunate, but expected maybe, I guess, news on the injury report.
Oh, well, just so people know, Edwin Rios was in case you were watching the game and you're like, what are these guys doing here? Edwin Rios was the 27th man for the London series. As par for the course of Edwin Rios's Cubs career, he never saw the field. Manny Rodriguez and Nelson Velasquez were part of the taxi squad to London. So if, God forbid, somebody got sick or something happened, you had another pitcher and you had another position player. So you had that there. So that was the roster moves, but the injury news was just devastating. You know, Dustin, sometimes during the All-Star break or whatever, you have guys come back from injuries and it's almost like making a big move at trade deadline, right? So when you think about it, okay, you didn't have Kyle Hendricks for most of the season. You get him back, that's like signing a free agent or trading for somebody or someone, you know what I mean?
Oh,
and so,
absolutely. And we've been begging to find out what the timeline was on Cody Hoyer.
Yeah. And so the two guys here that are out for the season, that to me, I said to myself, the Cubs don't need to really make any moves. They have it internally as long as these two guys can get it together. One of them was Cody Hoyer, who is coming back from injury. And we talked about just it was a video. It was horrible. You knew right away, but it was an elbow fracture. So, I mean, my stomach just turned when I saw the video. I knew it was bad, and that's it. He is done. But this was a guy that was throwing 100 miles per hour, Dustin. So you combine that with Julian Merriweather. Now you got some smoke. You're missing bats coming out of the bullpen. That would have been huge. The other thing we talked about from the beginning of the season, they were counting on Brandon Hughes to be the lefty out of the bullpen, and his knee kept bothering him. They put a brace on it. But he never was the same. He's having season-ending knee alignment surgery. So you just lost two key pieces to the bullpen that if somebody asks me what the Cubs need to trade for, those two things, a guy that throws heat and a lefty, are the two things I think you need.
Absolutely. Very, very unfortunate news. Also some news on Brennan Davis.
Yeah, he underwent core muscle surgery, will be out 6 weeks. It's just...
Is that the second time that there's been a core muscle surgery for him?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
I feel like that was what was bothering him before.
I know he had the back issue with the nerves, and then the core muscle injury. But here's the thing, baseball's a game that's really strange. One day you're the top prospect, and all of a sudden you start falling down the list. That's what happened to Miguel Amaya. And with Brennan Davis, he was the number one prospect. He was the MVP of the Futures game. And unfortunately, just injuries keep setting him back. And I feel awful because I know Brennan. He's a great kid. He's a competitor, and he's still young. He's going to fight back from this, but it makes it harder and harder to break through. So we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens indeed. All right, Crawly, it is buckle up time because the Cubs are going to get into a stretch here with a lot of tough games, at least on paper. It starts on Tuesday, 3 night games, if I'm right, Crawly, 3 night games against the Phillies starting on Tuesday.
I will be there tomorrow night. If you remember, last time the Cubs took on the Phillies in Philadelphia, it was May 19th to May 21st. The Cubs were in the middle of a miserable stretch. They lost the series 2-1. The interesting thing is the Cubs are going to see the same pitchers they saw last time around. So in game 1, Stroman was dominant and the offense crushed Rangers Suarez. The Cubs won that one 10-1. Nico Horner drove in 4 runs. Morel drove in 3 and Magical drove in 2. It was a different story in game 2. On the flip side, Jameson Taillon gave up 6 runs in the first inning. Kyle Schwarber with a grand slam. Phillies went on to win 12-3. Aaron Nola shut down the Cubs offense. And so after each team had a blowout win in game 3, it was a nail biter. Justin Steele pitched 6 shutout innings. Taijuan Walker went 5.1 and gave up no runs. But Adbert Alzolay, in one of the rare games he wasn't very strong, he gave up 2 in the 7th. Christopher Morel hit a homer off Craig Kimbrell in the 9th, but the Cubs lost that one 2-1. So, when we look at the standings right now, and here I'm going to get irritated all over again because you remember, Dustin, the Cubs were 10 games back. And I said, look, right now, just focus on getting to 5 games back, right? You can't make up 10 games like that. Just have small goals. Get to 5 games under 500. And then when you're at 5 games under 500, get to 500 and then start working your way up. The Cubs had a chance to come back home from London at 500, from 10 games under back to 500, which is not an easy task. But, that loss hurt them, but they're still very much in this. Cincinnati, wow, they could lose. I didn't know that was allowed in this league. They're still in first.
2 in a row.
That was one hell of a series against the Braves. If you loved baseball, that was a series, let me tell you. Cincinnati in first place, 41-37. They lost 2 one-run games to the very good at first place Atlanta Braves. Milwaukee, they're doing okay. They're treading water. They're 40-37. They're 6-4 in their last 10. And then the Cubs at 37-39. They're 3 games back, but 8-2 in their last 10. Pittsburgh continues their free fall, 2 losses in a row. They're now 35-42. They are just sinking. And then the Cardinals at 32-45, 8.5 games back in last place in the division. So we'll see what happens. Now we get to the
Cubs. The Cubs have been on a roll, so let's. Third place isn't shabby considering where they were at, but it'd be a whole different tone this morning had the Cubs taken care of both games and they were back at 500. Very different.
You're back at 500. Now you're 2.5 games back. It just gets really. You start getting super excited, and then the momentum is rolling. But you know what? We got to sit there and focus on the Phillies, like you said. Not going to be an easy series.
All right, game 1, we've got Taillon versus Suarez.
Yep, Jameson Taillon, who's been decent. He's It was really, really bad to start, and now he's serviceable. I think would you say that's probably the best way to describe him?
Serviceable, right? For $76 million or whatever. Yeah, serviceable.
2-5 with a 6.71 ERA against Baltimore. He took the loss, 5.1 innings, gave up 8 hits on 4 runs. Against Pittsburgh, he got the win, 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs. And against the Angels, he got the loss, 5.1 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned runs. So, I mean, that's almost like you kind of see what's going on there is that with him, he's given up, he's going about 5, maybe 6 innings, and he's given up 3, maybe 4 runs. So, offensively, you're going to have to do something here. You can't have one of those offensive games with the runners in scoring position and you're not going to win a 1-0, a 2-1 game with Tyone on the mound. That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And so on the other end, we got Ranger Suarez. He's 1-2 with a 3.50 ERA. This is the guy that the Cubs pounded the first time that they played against the Phillies. He's a starter. He keeps starting for him, but he's not a guy that's doing a lot. Last time he got a win was on June 4th. And so not a guy that's had a lot of luck here. He doesn't go a lot of innings, but lately he's been doing better, but he's been on a roll his last few games. Against Atlanta, he didn't get a decision, but he went 6 innings pitch, and he only gave up 1 earned run. Against a very good Arizona team, he went 7 innings, gave up no runs. And against the Dodgers, he went 6 innings pitch, and he gave up 1 run. So this is not the same guys that the Cubs faced in May. This is a guy that's on a roll right now, Dustin.
Let's hold our, let's believe, Crawly. I want to believe. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Cubs operate after that trip to London. That's going to be something that everybody's going to keep their eye on.
Right. Yeah. That first game back. Yeah. The time zone, all that stuff. Like you said, they're back today. It's not, you got a night game. So hopefully they're young men. Hopefully the jet lag doesn't get them too bad, but that takes us to game 2. Drew Smyly, 7-4 with a 3.38 ERA. Last couple games, Pittsburgh, really good, 5 innings, 3 hits, 0 runs, but he wasn't really efficient. Remember, there's a lot of traffic on there, and that was the game he had 5 walks. But he did get the win on that against Pittsburgh. He got the win. 6 innings, gave up 9 hits, 5 runs, but the offense was just phenomenal in that series against Pittsburgh. And then against the Angels, that was a pretty good game. He got the loss, but he went 6 innings pitch, gave up 6 hits and 2 earned runs. So hoping that Drew Smyly, I feel like there's more in the tank. I'm just kind of waiting for that to kind of come out. As far as the Phillies are concerned, we have Aaron Nola on the mound. And remember, Aaron Nola dominated the Cubs in that start in May. The last game against Atlanta, 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 0 runs. Arizona was his start before that. He went 6.2. He gave up 4 runs, and then he had a bad start against the Dodgers. 6.1 innings pitched, 7 hits, 6 runs. But again, Aaron Nola is just one of those guys that is just a crafty veteran who knows how to pitch, and any game he can go out there and dominate.
Yeah, absolutely. These are 2 workhorses that you're seeing in this game, and Aaron Nola, it can be awfully good at times. So that this is a game that the Cubs are not going to be able to play like they played on Sunday and get a win against Aaron Nola and the Phillies. That's for sure.
No way. And the final game, game 3, you got Kyle Hendricks on the mound for the Cubs and against Taijuan Walker. And again, the Phillies haven't seen Hendricks this year. Remember, Hendricks is kind of calling his own games right now. He has won his last 3 starts, and the numbers look good. Against Pittsburgh, 6.1. He gave up only 1 run. Against Baltimore, 5.0. Kind of struggled on that one a little bit. That was after that phenomenal game against San Fran, but he only gave up 2 runs. But he wasn't his usual self with his efficiency on the pitch count. And then against San Francisco, that was the game where you thought that he was going to maybe get a no-hitter. He gave up 1 hit and no runs, going 8 innings. So Taijuan Walker, we know that, against the Mets, 6 innings, gave up 1 run. Against Oakland, he went 8 innings, he gave up 1 earned run. And against the Dodgers, he went 5 innings and gave up no runs. This is like the series has got me nervous, Dustin. I'm going to be honest.
Yep, it's a tough one. There's no doubt about that. This is a tough series, and it's not exactly what you wanted after that trip. So, let's talk about the hot and the not, shall we?
Yep, on the hot for the Cubs, let us talk about Nick Magical.
Nick Magical.
Yep, 6 for his last 16, 3 RBIs. He's slashing 375, 444, 563. Also hot, Dansby Swanson, 5 for 15 with a homer and 4 RBIs, slashing 333, 444, and 523. So he is looking pretty good for the Cubs. Not, oh boy, do you think Seiya Suzuki wanted to get on that plane any quicker? He had a miserable London series, and lately he's been struggling in his last 7. He's 4 for his last 21. He does have 4 RBIs, but he's slashing 190, 208, 238. Again, this guy, it's just hot or cold, hot or cold. There's no in between.
No in between with him at all. It's either all or absolutely nothing.
And then Christopher Morel has slowed down, like I said. He's 4 hits for his last 20. He does have an RBI, but he's slashing 200, 273, 200. So hoping that he can get back on track.
Absolutely. How about for the incoming Philadelphia Phillies? Who's hot? Who's not?
Brandon Marsh, center fielder, 10 for his last 17 with 2 RBIs. He's averaged in his last 7 games is 588, 611, 765. You cannot get much hotter than that. And then this one will always irritate me. I think he should have stayed a Cub. Nick Castellanos. He's 5 for his last 18 with a home run and 2 RBIs. He's slashing 278, 381, 444. And Nick Castellanos, we all know, loves hitting at Wrigley Field.
Loves hitting at Wrigley. And can Brandon Marsh get a haircut while he's here? Maybe a shave? Boy. I mean, I'm not like the Yankees where I think you have to be that clean cut to be on my ball club. But boy, Brandon Marsh just looks like a mess.
Maybe we get him a shampoo, just the whole works. Maybe we can get a sponsorship through that, some sort of haircut place.
Yeah.
But on the not, Kyle Schwarber's had a rough season. He's 2 for his last 20. He has an RBI, but he has 10 strikeouts to 2 walks. He's slashing 100, 217, 100. But again, like I said about Castellanos liking to hit at Wrigley, Schwarber's going to give whatever little extra he may have in the tank, he's going to want to put on a show at Wrigley,
Absolutely. Nobody's a bigger fan of Kyle Schwarber than me. I just hope that he's limited to maybe 1 home run in the 3 games.
The other guy that's surprisingly on the cold list for them is JT Realmuto, their catcher. He's 3 for his last 17, no home runs, no RBIs. He's slashing 176, 300, and 176. Here is the thing about the Phillies, Dustin, is that they don't seem to wake up until June for some reason. And that's exactly what they're doing now. They've gotten really, they're starting to climb back in this one, and they're playing some of their best baseball. They've won 7 out of their last 10, and they're slowly coming up. They're now in 3rd place. They're chasing Miami. They're a long way back from the division. They're not going to catch Atlanta, but they're only 3 games out of the wild card. So they know from last season and the World Series run. Remember, they were garbage, Philadelphia, for most of the season. They got hot at the right time, and they carried that all the way to the World Series. They have that confidence they can do it again.
Yep, they've got a lot to play for. Hopefully they don't play too hard here at Wrigley, but let's get into some prediction time, Crawly.
Yeah, yep. I'm going to go with the Cubs taking 1 of 3.
Yep, me too. I'm sounding like last season. This is a just don't get swept. Just don't be too uncaffeinated, too tired. You should be motivated, but just do not get swept. I think they'll get 1 for sure. And let's hope that we get into the 3rd game of the series, and you got a chance with Kyle Hendricks on the mound to wrap that thing up. That's going to be on Thursday night. All right, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram. Also, you can email us, flythew670@gmail.com. And now, of course, Crawly, you can watch us on YouTube by subscribing to the 670thescore.com YouTube channel.
The Cubs are coming home. I hope to see everyone out at Wrigley. I'll be there. Follow me on on the socials, and hopefully I bump into you, Wrigley, and we can toast flying the W after it's all over. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!